Welcome to the lABLEd podcast, a show about disability, illness and difference. I'm Lucy.
And I'm Alice. And that's Lola.
Kaleidoscope identity, and this is who I'm meant to be. I'm just labelled me. I'm just labelled me.
Don't forget, in this episode, I might swear, Lucy might cry, and you can check out details of the trigger warnings on our website.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the lABLEd podcast. I am Lucy, and Alice is here with me, of course,
Hello.
as ever. Hello, how are you?
I'm alright, thank you. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm all right. Had a little bit of a stressful week where I just don't feel like my brain is working properly or that I can speak, which is good when you've got a podcast, really, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Speaking's medium important.
And then last night I was lying in bed and thinking, am I losing my voice? Brilliant. I have to tell you, listeners, I am not.
I've lost my voice, I think, twice in my life. Mm-hmm. And it was quite an experience for me because I keep forgetting. And so I just it was both times was when I was at uni. And so I was used to kind of just sitting around in my room on my own. And then I'd walk into like the kitchen and see my housemates and I'd be like, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I've got no voice.
Do you know, when I used to do sponsored silences to raise money for stuff at school, they would often pay me double just to shut me up. Which I don't think it's very kind at all. But there we go. So how are you, Alison? How's your week been?
Busy.
Busy.
Mental. So the same as ever. And my dog is moderately badly behaved.
Right.
Earlier this week.
What has she eaten this week?
Well, she came back in from the garden earlier this week and I was like, why are you walking funny? And I looked and she had a twig sticking out of her bumhole with a little nugget of poo on the end of it.
Well, that brings all me to the phrase with a stick up your ass.
The joys of Labradors, everybody. There are guide dog owners everywhere going, yeah, just another Wednesday.
La. Right, I'm going to move on swiftly. Because I think that even made our guest gag. Because I heard her.
I can't help it. I was gone, but come on now.
So today, this week, I'm still thinking about sticks. This week we are joined by the fabulous Jem Turner. Jem is going to talk to us about a little bit. We're going to try and do serious topics in the usual lABLEd podcast, unique brand way. And we're going to be talking about ableism today, what it is, who is ableist, how you can be ableist, and how you can maybe limit the ableist attitudes you may have. Was that a fair assessment, Alice, do you think?
Sure, why not?
I don't like it when you give me big like silences and I just keep talking and you're like, go on.
Sorry, what you're saying is you're not used to me being quiet.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we both shut up and let Jem talk for a bit?
Yes, Jem, could you please introduce yourself while I just quieten down?
I thought that was a great intro.
Thank you.
Yourself down. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Jem Turner. I'm a content creator and a consultant. I'm from West Yorkshire. Don't know if you can tell by my accent. I'm a very sarcastic, but hopefully, not disrespectful way, person who likes to. I'm really fascinated by people, basically, and I think growing up as a wheelchair user who's very empathetic, I've definitely watched people and their reactions to me and kind of just made it my job to take the piss out of people and entertain them along the way. Yeah, and just kind of sharing my knowledge, my experience, not that that's everything, but it's a little section about disability, just to make it easier for us to get on with the world and just do what we need to do without, the ableism that we're going to be talking about today, really.
Yeah. I think throughout this episode you will find that ableism is bad, and don't be like John, the ableist asshole.
Yes.
Sorry to any Johns who may be listening.
I was just going to say my dad's called John, but I'm sure he's ableist sometimes.
I'm not talking about Jem's dad. But yeah, I have to say it was a really interesting topic, and particularly for people that are non-disabled, and they learn a lot from us.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
We do say so ourselves.
Yeah, surprisingly. I mean, it always surprises me when they go, I learned a lot from that episode. I'm like, oh, did you?
Yeah.
I'm doing something right.
I agree. I'm like, I think people have, it's sad, but low expectations of disabled people that much that when we do teach them, they're like extra surprised because they're like, whoa, I actually learned something from you. And you're like, yeah, I know.
Congratulations, put a gold star on the chart.
Yeah. Not just sitting or eating crayons, actually doing something sensible. Yeah.
Can you believe it?
I know. Shock horror. Jem, could you give us a bit about your background then? So you said you're a wheelchair user. What disability or condition do you have?
Yes, so I am 3'1" to audio describe to the listeners. I have brittle bones, which is osteogenesis imperfecta type 3, if you want to get medical, which basically means that my bones are like really fragile and I can't put any weight on my legs. I don't stand, I don't walk, so I rely on my wheelchair to get around pretty much 24/7 if I'm obviously needing to be out and about.
This might be quite ableist, but I feel a little bit like, you're 3'1". You don't need to walk anywhere. People can carry you around in their pocket.
Yeah, but I'm quite heavy. Like my friends and my family call me like a sack of potatoes because even though I'm small, I'm not very elegantly carried. I'm no Polly Pocket anymore. But yeah, and people can carry me, but it's not as elegant as it used to be. But yeah, that's me really. It's very visual. As soon people who can see, people who see me, they know I'm disabled, and I think living as that person, Lucy, you might resonate with this. It's like you can't hide away from it. It's a 24/7 thing, and it can be so draining, and having this job is good, but it's exhausting as well because you live in it and you work in it, and I'm finding that tricky at the moment.
I often describe, because I work for a company that deals with accessibility issues and things like that, and I often find that advocating for accessibility needs and things like that, and also doing this podcast, that sometimes I feel like I am repeating myself so much, and then somebody goes, but I don't understand. I don't understand what you're complaining about. That sometimes it does feel like you're wading through treacle.
Yeah.
And banging your head against a brick wall all the time.
Yeah. You feel like a saleswoman. Like, I'm selling people disability that we're all right. We're actually pretty good people. We can have a laugh, and then you think, but I shouldn't have to do that. And what if I don't want to have a laugh? What if I'm just fuming at life? But then you're stereotypically disabled, and as you two know, there's so many layers. I do enjoy it. It's just, every day's different. Today I'm a bit fatigued, and, there's the whole internalized ableism of like, come on, push yourself. And yeah, I'm sure we'll get into all that, but every day is different.
Yeah, that internalized ableism for me is a really hard thing because you get that feeling of you're kind of warring with yourself of going, well, I can't, there's a part of you that's like, oh, self-care and you should rest and stuff like that, and there's a part of you that says, well, but if you're you're not fatigued. Everybody else can do this. You know, you're just lazy.
Yeah.
Everybody, and it's really hard to walk that line, because as much as you want to fight against the pressures and expectations of the outside world, you've also got your own pressures and expectations that have kind of grown into you because of your experiences. And you know, it's my experience is different from your experience, because for a lot of my life I've been able to pass as non-disabled, so there is an element, I think, for me, not that, you know, I want to play disability top trumps and say, oh, it's harder for me, but there's an element of I can't just kind of point at my chair and go, oh, but I've got this as an excuse. You know, this is hard because wheelchair. I have to be like, this is hard and you can't really see why it's hard, but I'm really tired and this is really, you know, emotionally exhausting. And I think that's one of the most dangerous elements of ableism, is the way that it insidiously kind of is within the disabled community as much as it is, you know, the non-disabled community.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to say that ableism, you are not immune to ableism just because you are disabled.
Absolutely not.
I always say you can be disabled and still be an asshole. You know, it doesn't make you like, oh well, I'm such a goody two shoes because I'm disabled, because we can all be naughty and we can all get up to stuff that is wrong.
Yeah.
We can rebel as well, and I think it's important to say that just because you are affected by disability in some way, shape, or form, you can still be ableist and have ableism, and maybe you don't even know you have.
I was going to say, I think that's the important thing to say, is that you can be ableist unintentionally, because
completely.
it's so rampant and so deeply ingrained in our society that people who want to be really pro access and open-minded and inclusive still find that they have some ableist views and expectations, because it is just so deeply ingrained. And I mean, we've talked about it on the show before, where, you know, we've both held our hands up and gone, oh, I hadn't thought of that before I said it. I hadn't realised that would be an ableist thing to say about a person with a disability whose, you know, disability is different from ours, because it is so deeply ingrained. We are a product of, you know, the community and the culture we live in, that I don't want to sit here and attack people for ableism they didn't know that they had. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. And how are you supposed to know? This is what I say to people, like, it's okay that you don't know. It's if you know and you're still doing it, that's the difference.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you are acutely aware of ableism and you go, yeah, well, I'm still going to use that phrase. I'm still going to use those terms. You know, you go, oh, okay, well, that's banging our heads. That's what makes us tired, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the ableists who know they're ableists and so they still carry on anyway, because you think, well, that's ignorance. There's a difference between being ableist, being a reformed ableist, and being ignorant.
Yeah.
You just go, yeah.
Before we move forward, is it perhaps worth giving, for those people who haven't worked it out by now, a bit of a definition of what ableism is?
Yeah, I can give that a go if you want me to.
Go on, Gemma.
Right, so just to disclaimer, I am a person that likes to use simple ways of describing things. I'm no academic, so I'm just going to describe it the way I would, and you two can add anything on as well. If you want.
To add to that disclaimer, neither Lucy or I are academics.
Okay, that's perfect. Well, I was thinking about this before I came on. Very quickly, as I panicked and read Lucy's Instagram message, I would say ableism to me personally is any behaviour that either favours non-disabled people, firstly, and I can go into examples as well, or directly discriminates or hurts disabled people. That's my go-to way of describing it. And
Yeah.
examples for me, favouring non-disabled people. I'm going to pick a really sort of basic, crude example, but there's so many different ways of describing it. But say, you know, a building that just has stairs and no ramps, that's ableist in terms of it's expecting everybody to walk and not, you know, not have any kind of physical disability or impairment. So that is ableist, structurally ableist presenting of buildings.
Mhm.
And then the other example of, you know, being disrespectful or harmful to disabled people are the things we just talked about slurs, use of language, actively using, you know, things like, do you mind if I say the words, or do you want me to?
No, it's fine. We'll put a little warning at the beginning of the episode, just to
Yes.
say, watch out for Gemma, she's got dirty mouth.
Yeah, you know, that's good. So any words like cripple, retard, spaz, you know, all those words that we hear on TV, we hear it in entertainment, you know, it's so flippant that we just naturally hear it every day, but it's so ableist because, you know, I'm sure us as a collective have had that either said to us or even in jest, you know, with, in quotes, friends. You know, people whack out those words, and it's those subtle yet really impactful words, you know, that we really need to try and dismantle, basically. So that's my kind of two-way prong. I don't know if you two want to add anything to that, really.
I agree. I think the only other sort of element to it is the sort of the stereotyping and the expectations that come along with it, that if you're disabled, you are a certain type of person, in the same way that, as you know, there are gendered stereotyping and racial stereotyping. It is the same that if you're a disabled person, if you're a person of color within certain communities, people expect you to behave or think less of you simply because that's who you are.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, and I think that what is what I was going to add as well. You know, that stereotyping that comes from ableism then leads on to things like inspiration porn, and we're so inspiring because we've just got up our bed and we've managed to brush our own teeth.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That kind of, isn't she brilliant?
Oh, pat on the head.
Yeah, and that sympathetic head tilt. Oh, bless you. That again is, it's all mixed in together, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
The whole, I can't stand the I word. In fact, I nearly said, before this recording, I nearly said it to describe somebody I was talking about, and Alice went, "Did you nearly use that word?" I was like, "Yes." I stopped myself. I mean, it's all right, you know. Disabled people can be inspiring, but we are not inspiring just because we've managed to get up and not drop any food down our shirts this morning.
We're not inspiring because we're disabled. We're inspiring because of the stuff that we've done, regardless of whether we're disabled or not.
Yeah,
that's exactly. You know, I've got no problem with the I word in that sense, but when you just use it to go, oh, you're so inspiring, you've dyed your hair bright red, you think that's enough now.
I mean, it's very inspiring, Lucy. As a
thank you.
You know what word I've started using instead?
What's that?
Admire, which I quite like. Because, you know, when you admire somebody, you can appreciate something that they've done or who they are as a person, but you're not like, woe is me, or not woe is them. Do you know what I mean? I just think it's a good word.
It gets rid of the pity side of it, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, you just admire what they do, you know?
Yeah. I always like to use the word encouraging as well. If I can encourage somebody to go, actually, do you know what? If Lucy can do it, then there's nothing stopping me.
Yes.
That I quite like that word as well, because that again is putting the power back in the other person rather than me going, "Go on, you could do it." You know, if I could do it and I can't walk, what's wrong with you? Kind of thing. It's that level of, you know, that's the whole thing. And often when I say to people, you know, when they'll go, "Oh, you're quite inspiring," I'll go, "Why?" And they go, "Oh, well, you just are." And you think, That's not a reason, is it?
People often tell me I'm inspiring because I work in social care, and the sort of work I do, people see me there with my dog and are like, oh, you're such an inspiration. And I'm like, you should hear the way I talk about my job when I'm not at work. Like you would not be inspired, you would be shocked and appalled because I'm not an inspiration. I'm complaining that I'm not paid enough to put up with this bullshit.
Yeah. It's just such a, from a disabled person's point of view, isn't it? It's like, it's baffling. And it's like, both sides can't believe that you can't believe each other. That's what I find so funny about it. It's like,
yeah,
I can't believe you find me inspiring, and they're like, I can't believe that you're offended by being called inspired. Like, it's a cycle, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, because you can kind of get it, because like they're going, I think it's really cool that you're doing this, but the problem is they're saying, I think it's really cool that you're doing this because you're in a wheelchair.
Yeah,
they
because
wouldn't be
you're
saying it to they would be saying it to a person who didn't have a disability.
They wouldn't be saying it to Susan. Susan's here again. Imagine Susan
from accounts.
Yeah,
from accounts.
Susan.
Yeah. Who from accounts who can walk up a flight of stairs in really, really high heels and do it really quick. And you wouldn't be saying the same stuff to Susan, would you? No.
But she's got to run up the stairs super quick because she's got lipstick on her teeth and she needs to get to the bathroom to sort it out.
Yeah, exactly.
The rest of us can look after ourselves. So
yeah, you see, I can put lipstick on my mouth without getting on my teeth. That makes me inspiring.
I can't, but I've learned the trick that what you do is after you put your lipstick on, you stick your thumb in your mouth, and you rub your teeth, and you pull your thumb out, and that gets all the excess.
See, I would just get loads of. I would get in a mess with that. I'd come out of the bathroom looking like the Joker.
Well, I stick your thumb in your mouth, Luce, not up your nose.
I mean, I'm doing for purposes of this podcast. I'm trying to do it now, and I go
I don't think I can do that either, Lucy.
No, you see, mess, like a mess. Yeah, so but it always baffles me, and I always say, if I could have a pound for every time somebody called me that word, I would be a millionaire.
We'd be rich,
and also, I've done educational talk about what it's like to live with a disability, which I always find a bit weird because my life, like, is not that entertaining.
We're just living,
yeah. And I find, like, where do you want me to start? Do you want me to go from birth to now, or like the last 5 years? Yeah. Anyway, so I went to this one. It was like a church group, which,
Wow.
And I said, well, it was quite cold. There was only about 14 of them, and in the church. And I said, whatever you do, please, like, try not to call me inspiration. If I encourage you, that's fine. But please try and not use the I word.
Yeah.
And she at the end, I'm laughing because even now I would think, what? This woman from the back of the church, who I'd not seen the whole time I'd been stood up there talking, came over to me, grabbed me by the hand and said, I think you've cured my bipolar.
No.
Because you were such an inspiration.
Yeah. Next time I have an episode, I'm going to think of you and I'm going to pull myself out of that dark place. And I'm like, how? But let's unpack this. First of all, don't really think you've got bipolar if all it takes is me talking to you for 25 minutes to cure it, in inverted commas. Secondly, what have I just told you that makes my life sound so bad that you think you have got it better than me? Like, that is what?
And people don't realise how offensive that is. Like, I don't want to, that is funny. It is funny. But, then we've got to go home and sit with that and think, God, there's people out there that just looking at us think, oh, I feel so much better because I'm not like that. Yeah. Like, that is so offensive, isn't it? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because at least my life's not that bad.
Yeah. Like, God, can you imagine having her life? And that, you just think, you don't know.
No.
And when you break that down, people people walk past you in the street and see your mobility aid or whatever it is and think, oh, there, but for the grace of God, I'm so glad that my life isn't that bad. They're literally looking at you and going, their life is so bad because they can't walk. And you just sort of, I want to say to people, just that one thing that Lucy can't do is she can't walk. But what about all the other stuff? Like, is your life so closed down that the only thing that's worth doing is walking around? Like, do you wake up in the morning and go, oh, it's so good, I'm going to walk to the bathroom, and then I'm going to walk downstairs, and then I'm going to walk around in my garden? It's like, life is worth living.
Let me tell you, you know when people go, oh, this weekend I'm going to walk up like Mount Snowdon. Why?
Yeah.
Why? Because when you get there, you're not going to be able to see anything because it's cloudy. Just stay here. Go up on the train and then have like a pint on the way down or something. You know what I mean?
I mean, I can understand. I tried when we went to the Caribbean a few years ago. I did a load of research and I found this mountain hike that was all song and dance about how accessible it was. And I was like, this is amazing. They've obviously done something like they've paved like a road up or something like that. So I was really looking forward to it. I was like, I'm gonna climb a fucking mountain and I'm gonna stand there and look over this beautiful tropical Caribbean island, and I'm gonna have a drink with my husband at the top, and I'm gonna be like, this is fucking awesome. And we got there, and what was accessible was the route up to the place where you hike from, and then it was just a mountain, and like you were basically expected to crawl hand over foot to get up it. And I was like, it is not safe for my husband to guide me, help me with my balance, and also try and walk up a mountain for him, never mind me. And it was really gutting. And that was one of the times in my life where I was really sad to have a disability, because it was something I was really looking forward to. Yeah. But the reason I couldn't do it was because that mountain was ableist. That mountain, nobody had done the work to make that accessible for me. And I understand there's a lot, of complexities to it because it's a natural mountain and wildlife habitats. No. But it just, it was one of those things where that was one time where if somebody had turned around and said to me, I'm really glad I don't have your disability because that's really shitty, I would be like, it's really fucking shitty. But that wasn't my whole life, no. And there are other things that I have done that are amazing. We've been in I've been in a helicopter ride and stuff like that. And there are still really awesome things that I've done with my life that, regardless of my blindness, are awesome.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's things that in each of our lives that we've done, and in our own heads, our disability has not come into it whatsoever. We've just done it without even thinking. But to the outside world, oh my God, you've overcome adversity.
Yeah, you don't think about it, do you, until... No. It's such... what you just said, Alice, is like, it's because of something external has made those internal feelings happen. And that's the point of ableism. It's never... because, it's very rarely, we all have, I would say my only worst days around my disability is pain, because it hurts when you break a bone, of course, and I can't shy away from that. I can't even say, oh, it's it chuffing hurts. So that is the only thing. But apart from that, everything else is like what you said. You come across barriers, and then all of a sudden you're reminded that you can't access something, and it's so hard not to internalize that and think, but actually, if it did make the mountain accessible, you wouldn't have had those feelings.
Yeah.
Or even a bit on the website that said this mountain is not accessible.
Yeah, just prepare us.
I think that the thing that was the salt in the wound was that I had specifically been looking at all the stuff to see what I could do, and I'd wanted to do something like, and it was our last day as well, our last full day, so we couldn't even like rearrange to find somewhere that might be easier. And I think, you know, if I'd stood there at the bottom of that mountain and sprouted wings and flown up to the top just so that I could overcome my disability and get up that mountain, then you can call me an inspiration.
I was going to say that is pretty inspirational, to be honest.
Also, Alice, if you do sprout wings and start flying everywhere, we are going to do that to the soundtrack of a Coldplay album, because that's what TV producers love.
Yeah.
Whack a bit of Coldplay behind that, possibly Snow Patrol, and we're well away.
Yeah. Because that disabled person has overcome their disability.
Oh yeah.
Maybe fix you.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Yeah. That'll do it. Yeah.
That'll do it. Yeah.
No, I've said it before, and I will say it again. The only magic power worth having is talking to cats. You don't need anything else.
I thought you were going to say talking to me. I was like, oh, thanks.
No, I don't need a magic power to do that. I just need a lot of patience.
Yeah, true. It's completely true, though, because I waffle. Going back to the whole being reminded about the fact you're disabled when we know we're disabled and we get on with it anyway.
Yeah.
Only last week I went swimming, and I've not been swimming for about 2.5 years because of the current situation, and obviously not being able to go and have a swim. And swimming is really good for my body. It helps with all my pain and everything. So I went for a swim, and I was feeling self-conscious because I put a lot of lockdown weight on. Obviously, everybody has. And also, when I am swimming, my brain goes, "What are you doing? No, what are you doing? You can't do this," and it panics.
Yeah.
Right? I know my brain panics. I can't calm my brain down. I just have to carry on. But so I splash. And to the lifeguards and everybody else in that pool, I look like I'm drowning. I'm not. I can swim. I've got my own water wings. I've got quite big boobs.
You're prepared. The body has prepared you.
Yeah, and my bum is quite big.
Same.
So my bum.
She's got her own buoyancy aids, everybody.
That's exactly what my mum always says, right? So I'm finding it so hard because obviously my brain's panicking. I've not swum in 2.5 years. My body's going, what do you want me to do? Like, how do we do this? I can't remember. And as I'm swimming past some quite slim, able-bodied, non-disabled, I should say, teenagers, one turns to the other and other in my earshot and says quite loudly, "She's disabled." And the other one goes, "Yeah, I know." Now, ordinarily, that wouldn't bother me, but because I was struggling, my body was hurting, my brain was going, "Oh, God, no." I got to the end of the pool and I cried because I thought there is no need for you to point out to me that I am disabled. I know. Everybody can see I'm struggling. I don't need to be reminded that I know everybody can see me struggling.
Yeah.
Because I felt embarrassed.
Yeah.
It's
ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
And when you kind of, I think the thing that so many non-disabled people don't kind of grasp with stuff like that is if you were to turn that on other physical differences, so if you were to point at a person in the street and go, "He's black," or point at somebody else in the street and go, "That's a woman,"
like she's fat.
Yeah, people, why on earth are you doing that? But there is something about disability that people seem to think it's okay. The number of times that I have people, you know, pointing at me as I walk past with my guide dog going, "She's blind," and I'm like, "I can fucking see you. Not that blind."
And I've got ears that work.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think it's that thing, innit, of like, you're constantly being watched. You don't have room to just be, you know, you're not allowed to make mistakes. You're not allowed to just give something a go without people running up to you and going, "Oh, let me do it," or "I'll help you," or "Are you okay?" And it doesn't help that anxiety, does it? Because you're already conscious of yourself. I always describe it as like, you know, when you like reversing your car, or you know, if you do drive or you're doing something that takes effort, and then you've got like a crowd of people watching you, you're not going to do it, are you? And it's exactly the same thing as
my
like when,
my able-bodied husband will start to park, especially when we lived on the old street we used to live on. He will start to try and park his car, and he will see somebody, one of our old neighbours, looking out the window, and he'll be like, "Nope, not parking here," and he will drive away.
Exactly.
Because
it's being watched. Nobody wants it.
It's like going for a wee when you know people are waiting for you to get in the car. You can't go for a wee because you're thinking people are waiting for me. People are waiting for people. I can't go. I'll hold it.
Yeah.
And then you need a wee when you're in the car, which annoys everybody. It's the same sort of thing, though, isn't it? Really, if you think about it.
Yeah, you feel like you just be it is that spectacle thing, and you know, I'm not surprised you felt like that, because if you're already having a bad day and then someone just says exactly what you're thinking, or not thinking, but you know, what of your conscious
you're aware of.
Yeah, and we know it. Like Alice said, we know exactly who we are. We don't need reminding.
And the thing that really annoyed me, I mean, I was already annoyed. I was like, "Mum, can I go and find this girl and splash her in the face because she's pissed me off?" She was like, no, leave it. I was like, yes, of course I'm going to leave it. But I did feel like saying to her, do you know I host a podcast? Maybe you should listen to a few episodes. It's quite good. But she also, the pair of them actually also, when I was being hoisted out of the pool, which is also something that I'm not keen on.
Same.
Because it looks like they're dragging you out of you've had a ducking stool incident, and they've gone, oh yeah, she's not a witch, let's get her out of there anyway.
Can't imagine how on show, because it's that being
awful,
watched, being stared at. That must be really and you're in your bathing suit as well. Exactly. I would feel really vulnerable.
I'm actually sweating just thinking about that scenario. Like, I've been there, and it's not nice, is it?
And they stood there and they were eyes wide, mouth open, staring.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, just go away and leave me alone, because all I want to do now is go and eat at McDonald's and cry. Thank you very much. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's a horrible thing.
I think it's a slightly, to be devil's advocate, like, there is an element of wanting to see how it works and understand. And as somebody who doesn't see well, I definitely do a lot of staring. So a couple of weeks ago we had to take the dog to the vets because she had 14 teeth out, so she's basically gumming everything now. I know. And while we were there, I don't think we were even picking her up. I think we were getting some special new old lady dog food because she's got gum everything. There was a couple who came rushing out of the side door and into the corner, and I looked and I was like, I wanted to see what was going on. I couldn't hear what they were talking about, and so I stood and looked at them for a long time, became aware that they were both having a quite serious cry at the vets. And my husband went, don't look over there. And it was, you know, I was trying to establish, just in my brain, I was like, oh, what's going on? And I didn't, I didn't stop to think why, because if I'd stopped and gone, somebody's rushing out of the vets and going to stand in the corner and be held by their partner, like, what else is going on here? If I'd thought about it, but I didn't, and so I stared and kind of processed it. And it's similar sort of thing for those girls in the swimming pool, is they were going, you know, well, how does she get in and out of the pool? How does this work? And I can appreciate there is a level of, I want to know how this works. But the problem with it is that by staring, you're dehumanizing the person who's experiencing it. Exactly. So what you need to, in those situations, you know, the best thing you can do is either, and I think this could be where it's a slightly sort of can be a bit hit and miss, is you either ask the person just outright, or you go home and you Google it.
Yeah.
or you, if you see me afterwards when I'm dressed and not self-conscious of my big fat potato belly because of lockdown, that you go, oh hi, I just saw you getting out of the pool in earlier on. Is it all right if I ask a few questions? Because if you ask me like that, I am perfectly willing to tell you everything you want to know.
Yeah.
Just don't stand there. But I don't know, to be honest, I don't particularly mind the staring when you've got, this is going to sound stupid, when they've got their mouth shut.
Yeah,
It's when they're
ogling,
staring
isn't
with
it?
that,
Yeah.
with an open mouth, and you're like, hello, hi.
I want to put my finger in their mouth and go, just to remind people of what they're doing.
I am aware of you here. Hello. I do think to myself, does Jennifer Aniston have this problem?
Oh, probably. She probably walked through Tesco's and people are like,
we are Jennifer Aniston. Oh my god, it's Jennifer Aniston.
The thing that people don't realise, though, as well, that I try and explain, is that when, like you've just said, Alice, like when people do that, they are one person and they don't think you're affecting their life at all. But you imagine we get 20 people maybe per outing, so like it all adds up, doesn't it? So you could that could have been your 18th person, Lucy, that someone had done that, and that's why it causes anxiety, because we're so used to it. It's not a new experience for them. It's a new experience, but for us, it's 28 years for me. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that's what I try and explain, that, you know, you might mean well and you might just be interested, but imagine everybody that we bump into are interested in your life. You're like, bloody hell, you know, I just want to get a bag of crisps. You know what I mean? So it's hard, though. I definitely get it. I get that you want to learn. It's just getting that balance, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? And it's also, as well, there was, you know, since starting this podcast actually, and speaking to Alice, I can remember one of the first things Alice said to me, because I say that, you know, if you want to ask questions, ask me. Doesn't matter how you ask that question, I will filter the answer so that you can understand it.
Yeah.
And Alice said to me, but why do you feel like you are always having to do that? Why, you know, because it is exhausting.
It is.
And I think it was only Alice talking to me and saying, why do you feel you need to do that?
Yeah.
Because isn't it exhausting? That it was only when Alice said that, I thought, actually, yeah, it is really exhausting. Maybe I shouldn't.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I should, not shouldn't, but maybe I should sort of take a step back and go, actually, I'm not going to answer that question today.
I think the way, for me, is that it's a two-way street, and the responsibility for educating each other crosses both ways.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are absolutely things about different cultures and experiences that I have no idea about, and if I wanted to learn, but we live in 2021, and if I wanted to learn about it, although the internet is full of trolls, it's also full of very interesting, very reliable sources that you can, without even, you know, you don't even have to ask people on Twitter. You can Google it and read a sensible academic article or something about it.
Yeah.
Or you can ask someone. But you know what? I think across all cultures and societies and groups, we also need to be able to recognize that, you know what, we shouldn't have to do all the heavy lifting.
No.
Like, people do always come to us, and like, I'm so bored of being asked the same questions over and over again. And it's like, I've got my standard answers where you can almost continue thinking about planning what else you're going to do while you're out, whilst you're having a conversation with someone, because you've had this conversation 15 million times, and it might be interesting for that person, and that person might go home and tell their one friend about it, but I just think like
but yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. Like, what are they going to do with that information once you've told them?
It's like pub gossip, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's where I think the problem with these little interactions, they don't combat ableism. The things that combat ableism are the big campaigns, they're the changes in representation in the media, and unfortunately it is also those big incidents like George Floyd losing his life to what those police did to him is horrific, but it brought that issue to the global stage.
It was a step change, wasn't it?
Exactly. And hopefully a lot of people will change their perspective because of hearing these new narratives. And I mean, that's partly what we're trying to do here is, you know, with this show is bring those disabled narratives out into the mainstream to an extent. And if you think that that's a good cause, you should make sure you share and rate and review and promote the podcast.
I hate it when you do this.
Was that a bit of promotion?
She just does it like it's like, oh my, like somebody's flicked a switch. Like, nobody's touched Alice. I promise you, she just all of a sudden like goes into podcast mode.
It's true though. It's true. It's I say that I've stopped when people ask questions now. I really think about whether I want to answer them or not. Like I've stopped, automatically answering.
Jem, that's a really interesting point that you brought up there. Like, if somebody says to you, or like asks you a question, for instance, for an example, what's wrong with you then? Yeah. Right? I know that there is a lot of things wrong with that question, but I'm just going by the average Joe question. Yeah. And you think to yourself, I'm not doing this today. Not today, Simon, thank you. Yeah. How do you go about saying no? Yeah. Is it as simple as, no, I'm not answering that question? Or is there a way that you work? Because I struggle with saying no. Yeah. And I will always go, oh, well, this, and then tell them my life story, and then you can see the kind of losing interest. But I can't bring myself, when somebody asks me, what is the matter with you? I can't bring myself to go, I'm not answering that question. So I'm interested to know how you deal with that. And actually Alice, how do you deal with it too?
The best I've ever had is if somebody comes up to me and goes, oh, what kind of dog is that? I will go, it's a Labrador.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Because I don't need to justify why I need my dog and what service she provides.
No.
And that always makes people go, but what kind of dog? And I'm like, she's black Labrador.
A very good dog.
No. Wrong.
Well, probably he's got twigs up his ass, so yeah.
So Jen, have you honed the skill of saying, thank you very much, but no, I'm not going to answer that question?
Yeah, and do you know what changed for me? So I used to be like that. I used to, answer everything and be like, well, when I was born, whereas what changed was I used to work at Uni of Leeds about 2 years ago for 2 years, and in the process I would be picked up by taxi drivers every morning and taken home. Yeah, you know what's coming. And the anxiety that I built because these men were asking me, you can imagine all the questions I was being asked.
Yeah.
I had the exact same, and I think this is probably mine came from the almost identical experience when I was at Uni of Leicester, and I had a 40-minute taxi journey to and from every day.
Literally.
And it was
horrific.
It was, it's a different person every time, and you just,
you don't know what's coming.
Here's the frequently asked questions. Take a read of those before we set off.
Literally.
And it's just, it's first thing in the morning, and I'm like, I've got my coffee and my coffee cup. I want to sit here quietly and just not. Or it's last thing at night and I'm fucking knackered and I've been in the library all day. I just want to not. But yeah.
So the way
Sorry, go on, Gemma.
No, the way I dealt with it was, I think I put up with it for like a couple of months, and then when someone says, what's wrong with you, I'll either, there are two options. One is go uber sarcastic and be like, nothing, what's wrong with you? Because that pulls them up and, to show them how rude that question is. Or I'll say, I was born, and this is who I am. You know, as in, how dare
Well, Jen,
you?
that gave me like little goosebumps then. I
Did
like
it?
that.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
You know, I was born the way I am. Nothing is wrong. You know, and
No.
it's screw you if you think something's. Do you know what I mean? It's like if you change that mindset and make them realise how rude that question is.
Yeah.
Or the third option is, I'm not answering questions like that. That's really personal. Yeah, you know, it's just being bold about it and not caring.
I think it's getting over that barrier, barrier that you put onto yourself of I've got to answer that, because if I don't answer the questions, it's rude.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
but it's rude. They're rude. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, you don't. Yeah, we're not on this world to educate people, just as much as other people aren't on this world to educate anyone. You know, it's choice, and my private information is sacred. I looked at something the other day, and I was like, yeah, my personal information is mine, and I will share it. I mean, I do put things on the internet, so you know, I'm a hypocrite sometimes, but yeah. It's my choice.
It's agency, isn't it? It's about you make that decision to share that information, and if somebody wants to find that information out, it's out there. But to just drop it in casual chat, like it's, you know,
first thing to say as well.
Yeah,
you know, it's, and when it's men, you know, I'm going to bring the gender thing up, but you know, as a woman, when a man that's at least 20 years older than you is asking you, how do you go to the toilet and do you have sex? That's not something that you want to be chatting about 7 o'clock in the morning. Well, ever.
Although, can you feel your legs? Or you're like, yeah. Well,
and
yeah.
Why do you want to? Like,
can you feel yours? Because you won't feel your feet by the time I've finished with you.
Literally. Well, one man said, "Can you have sex then?" And I just said, "Well, I'm not interested." Like, I just spun it round.
Yeah.
And they went bright red, and I was just like, "That's how rude it is."
That's harassment.
Yeah, it is.
That's sexual harassment. And if somebody said, if anybody, listeners, ever says anything like that to you because of your physical disability, it's particularly taxi drivers, you turn around and you report them, because there's ableism, and there's that, like, sexual harassment is terrifying and dangerous. And I mean, ableism is terrifying and dangerous, but one of the things that is being increasingly understood by the mainstream population recently, you know, sadly, in part thanks to what happened to Sarah Everard, women are constantly on edge because of their vulnerability and the perceived vulnerability, you know, of men taking advantage of them. And so, yeah, I think those questions, it's not just about being personal and like breaking a person's, you know, personal barriers. There's an inherent almost threat about asking that kind of
it's
question.
a power thing, isn't it?
Of course it is.
It is.
And I tell you where else is I find personally rife for ableism, and that is online dating. Online dating, I haven't done it for years because it's just soul destroying. And I won't ever do it again, ever. But the amount of times I got asked the question, what's wrong with you? So you'd go down the regular spiel of there's nothing wrong with me. You know, I've got cerebral palsy, but it doesn't stop me doing things that I want to do or living life. So you kind of get over that initial "what's wrong with you" question, and then there, you know, chit chat will then continue for a while, and then after about 15-20 minutes, they start with the disability questions again. And it's so can you have sex? Can you feel your legs? Have you not thought about suing the hospital where you were born? And you think,
isn't your CP because you were premature?
Yeah.
So you should be suing your mum then.
I had lack of oxygen to my, but no, but as far as I'm concerned, that what happened to me is nobody else's fault. My mum's not to blame. I know my mum occasionally she struggles with it. You know, she said if I'd have been able to grow you properly, it wouldn't have happened. And I said, Mum, that's ridiculous.
It's a freak happenstance of
course
nature.
it does.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things.
But you can just say and I can see the mindset of that ableist asshole that I'm talking to, going, oh well, if she's disabled, she might have some money because she'll have a payout from the hospital that did that to her.
Imagine thinking that. I don't understand. I know there are people out there that think it, but I just don't get it.
And I just got exhausted with it. I just thought I can't do it.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you either mention your disability and they disappear, or you mention the disability and then you get creeps and weirdos going, yeah, but can you still like?
Can you feel
everything?
Yeah.
It's
because the thing that they're immediately thinking about is their dick.
Yeah, of course they are.
It's for their own gain. Like I've stopped because it's just soul destroying, and I just feel like you say but people do say, oh, it's a really good way to filter, the people that you really don't want to go out with, and it's like, yeah, but I don't want to see that every day. I don't want to be reminded every day. And I haven't got the energy for it, so I'm just ready to get back out there.
So what would you guys say for the people out there listening who want to combat ableism, who want to be good allies? What would your advice be to them when you see ableism out in the real world in your life? What would be your piece of advice to those people?
Well, that's a good question. I think one thing for me would be the really default reaction is to defend the non-disabled person. That's the first thing that people do. And I would say, if you want to be an ally, pause, check how you're feeling, and if you're favouring the non-disabled person, think why. Think actually, what is it like for the disabled person? If somebody can't get into a building, but, it's an old building, it's really hard to make changes, well, what if there are ways to change it? People always try and favour the non-disabled view because that's all they know. So, yeah, challenge your defensiveness, I would say.
And I would say as well, there are lots of resources now on social media and things like that go into the use of language. So like Jem did earlier, Jem, you said the word stupid and corrected yourself and said ridiculous. This is something that I am still learning to do, and I was at work the other day and I said, I don't want anybody going into a blind panic or they're tone deaf, those kinds of phrases that actually are quite deep rooted in ableist attitudes and language. There's been a lot of work by people that I follow. I mean, I follow you, Jem, online, and there's been a lot of people like with yourselves who've gone, instead of saying this, say this instead. So we
all do it. Literally,
of course we do. I mean, I am constantly like, should I say that? I constantly have to check myself. Always. And it is getting better because of the job that I am now in. I am more aware of what I am saying. Makes it sound like I just run my mouth off all the time. It's like, oops, a daisy. And yes, of course, there are going to be times where the odd one does slip out, but I think it's making a conscious effort to try and not say things like, oh, you're so stupid, or that kind of thing.
That's really interesting because the couple of phrases that you threw out there about a blind panic or tone deaf would not have occurred to me. And wouldn't have been, like, I don't think I'd find a blind panic offensive, but I think the point that, one of the things that Gemma said is it's about stopping and kind of checking in and thinking about other people's perspective. Is you might not find that phrase offensive, but what if the person you're talking to, what if somebody listening, what if somebody walking past you in the street hears that phrase, and that phrase for them is really triggering and really upsetting. Like that's where it's kind of got to come from. The thing that I'm trying to use less gendered language. So I was very aware listening to one of our history lessons about Horatio Nelson, where we were very come at me bitch, and looking back at it, it's like, actually, you know what, bitch is a really horrible derogatory term for women. And I personally, I think, you know, these are all things that we need to try and across the board think about with our language. The other thing I'm trying really hard not to do is go, that's mad, isn't it? Because I work with a lot of people with mental health issues, and again, that's a really nasty term for somebody, for the experience of someone who has absolutely no control over their mental health.
Yeah. So like I've started using it, or trying to use a word, you know, like if somebody asks me how busy work is, and it's very busy, instead of saying, oh, it's mental. Or it's mad, I'll say, oh, it's crackers, you know, because it's you still get the same sense of she's really, really busy by you're supplementing mad and mental with crackers. Is not offensive to anybody, is it? Really?
I'm pretty sure I said work is mental at the top of this very episode. So it is also, you know, so I just realised I'm miles away from my microphone.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Come back to us, Alice. Come back.
It is some, like, it takes practice and work to build that into your vocabulary and your understanding.
Yeah.
But that is how it's doing little things like that is a big part of how that real institutional, deeply ingrained ableism gets broken, is because you just start spotting the everyday things and doing small things to change it.
Yeah.
Another example of language is I used to, this is going to sound awful and I apologise now, but I used my hands, occasionally my cerebral palsy in my hands seemed really bad compared to other days. So I can pick up a cup of tea and spill half of it all over me. I can not hold a pen. My hands feel like 5 minutes behind my brain. Like they just don't want to just sit there. Like, and I used to call it spaz hands because to me that's what it was. But I realised that actually I'm doing myself a disservice. These hands are trying. They're like claws, but they are trying. So now I call them ham hands because it's like I've got two hams on the end of my arms that just go, no, we're not working today.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that, isn't it, really?
And I think, again, that comes back to one of the other things that we've talked about before about self-identification.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people that use those kind of phrases as a bit of a shield.
Yeah.
You know, if I call myself a cripple, if I call myself a spaz, then I've done it first. Nobody else can, you know, it doesn't hurt then if other people say it.
No.
And that's a reflection of that internalized ableism. And I'm not saying, you know, if that's how you choose to self-identify, then fine, that's entirely up to you. But personally, I feel like using that kind of self-identification, it reinforces that.
And I think as well, this whole, you know, being disabled and being positive as well. You know, there are days where I mean, I like to be in neutral with it. Like, whilst I like to be positive about disability and the fact that it doesn't stop me, I'm not going to deny the fact that it makes everything difficult. And last weekend in particular, I had about 2 or 3 days where I thought, do you know what? I don't want this disability anymore. Can we take it off and try another jacket on, please? Because just everything, my hands were really bad. I got brain fog, which I've still got this week, as Alice will tell you, because my brain just goes, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And I just think, I've had enough of it. This is bad. I don't want this anymore. But so is that internal? Because I never really understand what of course I know what ableism is, but I'm very bad at identifying what is internalized.
To me,
What is
that's
me
not.
being
Yeah.
ableism.
No, I don't. I feel like that's not, but I'm not sure what Alice thinks. But to me, more internalized ableism is, oh, I'm not good enough because of this. Do you know what I mean? Whereas you can still recognize pain and fatigue, and you can be like, oh God, this sucks. I don't know. Like to me, that's not internalized ableism. But Alice, what do you think?
That's one of the things that makes disability really a lot more complex when compared to a lot of other minorities. So, when I was talking about self-identification, obviously, for the LGBTQ community, phrases like queer have very much been reclaimed and are a positive thing. And, so there should be elements of the disabled community where we can reclaim some of these words that have previously been, and there are, there's definitely movements within the disabled community to reclaim those kinds of words. For me, I think because of the complexities of, like, if you said to me, I'll take your disability away now, that's it, forever, it's gone, I would sell you my firstborn. Like no, I have kids. I hope the adoption social worker's not listening.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Like, I would like to retract that statement. Another one.
Yes.
The next one.
I will sell you an organ that I'm not using very much.
You sell the rights to the podcast to somebody who, like your fairy godmother, who can go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I would give up the podcast if it meant I didn't have my disability anymore.
And also, to be fair, do you think we'd have much to talk about if you were disabled? Then it would be like, "Hi, welcome back to the podcast." Basically, we're all cured.
Yeah. I don't have a disability anymore. Ha 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 ha. Sucks to be you guys.
Basically, Alice has been on the peppermint tea and everything's fine.
Yeah.
We're like, what's it like? Tell us everything.
So yeah, I think it's really important. I mean, ultimately, I don't know if I have the answer really to what is internalized ableism, what is ableism, what is living your truth, what is self-identification. But I think ultimately it's having these conversations is the really important thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that I struggle with confidence sometimes, and particularly this week. Alice is like, "No, you're doing all right, Luce. Come on, you're doing all right. Come on, it's fine. You're fine. Honestly, you're fine. It's just numbers you don't like. It's all right." Which is actually a snippet of the conversation we had earlier this week.
Ooh.
So, I think that I get very cross about the way my brain works and what sometimes embarrass me. There was an incident at work this week that I felt I couldn't do a piece of work because my brain was just like, I don't understand this. And the reason why I couldn't understand it was because my disability means I can't do numbers very well. I can do like creative stuff and words and stuff. Numbers, not a clue. Alice has to do all the numbers for the podcast because I'm like, no.
I have told you that I don't actually have a maths GCSE, haven't I?
No, you're better at it than me, so that's fine. I got a G in my maths GCSE. It's fine. So you see, it's really, really bad, and that embarrasses me. That I know that is internalized ableism, but I don't know how to stop it. I don't know how to stop feeling embarrassed by my brain going, "No, I don't know what you mean," because I pride myself of being able to understand people. And helping people understand me. So when I don't understand something, and it's because my brain's going, no, what? I get very embarrassed.
Yeah.
You see, I'm feeling talking about it. I'm feeling embarrassed.
Yeah.
I suppose the difference, I guess, between ableism, or the thing to really that you have to combat ableism, is that acceptance. It is going, you get brain fog. Numbers are difficult because of your disability. You find it hard. That's frustrating, but you can't help it, and it doesn't make you a bad person. And it, although it might be frustrating and a little bit embarrassing, these are the times where your disability is kind of a shield, because you can go, well, you can't take the piss out of me because of that, because this is not something I can have any control over.
Yeah.
And that's what it kind of comes back to. It's, you know, you cannot, anybody who makes fun of me for not seeing something, it's just a dick. Because if I could see it, I would do it. I would see it. I would, I don't know, dance all round it. But I can't.
We have production meetings, and I go to share my screen on Teams, and I go, "Can everybody see that?" And Adam will go, "Yeah." Alice will go, "No." Thank you, Alice.
I think that's how we combat ableism ultimately within ourselves and across society, is just the recognition of that. If this is how you are, that's okay, but that you can be a person and have other things and do other things that are unrelated to and extend beyond the things that you are because of your disability.
Yeah, definitely. And well, two things. One, some society is telling us that we have to be good at maths, when actually, who cares? Like, who actually cares? I know you care, and I'm not invalidating that, but genuinely, I don't care that you can't do maths, and you don't care that I can't walk. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I think you're a great person, and I don't even care that you don't do maths.
I've got a friend who knows his way around spreadsheets. It's fine. I'll just send him everything.
Well, there you go. And then the second thing, I do think, not combat, I don't know, but to just deal with it is to share. So, like, my internalised ableism is how loud my chair is. Like, that's got nothing to do with me. But when I'll do it for you. So, wait, I wonder if the mic will pick up. You hear that? Wait, I'll do it again. That's what happens when I turn it on. So ever since I was a teenager, doing that, like the boys at school will be like, you know, like that.
Yeah.
And
Gemma's coming.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's that thing of, that's got nothing to do with me, but I would feel embarrassed that I'm lugging around this metal thing that goes everywhere I go. Whereas now I'm trying to tell myself, like, so what? Like, whack it out, you know. But that's the internalised ableism. No one actually cares when it makes a noise. It's just me.
It's just a really complicated thing. Like, you know, other disabled people saying to you, you know, dissipating internalized ableism is a really important thing to do, but it's so hard.
Yeah,
so hard. But I've learned something, because I didn't really know what was internalized ableism, what was just me being a worrywart, really.
I think the thing that I would say, with all the work I've done on my mental health over the years, the best thing I would say that you can do to combat any of that sort of internalized ableism is it's what Gemma says. It's take a step back and think, you know, Lucy, if you, everything you just said about you and maths, if that had been a conversation you'd had with somebody else in a wheelchair, if it wasn't you, if that was, you know, if that was a conversation you were having with Gem, like, what from the outside, what would you say? What would your thoughts be? Because obviously from the outside, Gem and I are going, well, it's related to your disability, and it really doesn't fucking matter that you can't do maths. But inside your head, you're going, oh, I can't do maths, and that means my disability makes me stupid, or all of those things. But it's illogical. And the reason it's illogical is because our internalized voice and the way that society is structured is supposed to keep us down. It keeps us down. And that's where that self-doubt comes.
You find things to tell yourself that, the world's right, I am sure everything, when actually, you know, we're not. We've got to tell ourselves we're not.
My brain is just a horrible person.
The only person who can stop those thoughts is you. And it does I'm not saying that ableism from ableists and people outside in the world of structural ableism is not a thing, and is not a really important thing, and we do absolutely need to challenge those and change those. But I think internalized ableism is the most dangerous thing, because then it just, you can't fight and challenge against these people saying you're not good enough because you're disabled if in your head you're thinking, you know what, they're right.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. That took me a long time to realise that as well. Like I would say 18, I started to think, do you know what? This is impacting every part of my life. Like I couldn't do speeches without, having panic attacks and stuff like that because I was so bothered about what people thought of me. But it took that to literally, I did a speech, had a panic attack, dropped the mic, rolled out, and that was the day that I was like, do you know what? I'm not doing that again.
Jem, did you invent the mic drop?
Literally,
That's
I did
amazing.
that constantly. And it's just like sometimes you've got to process those thoughts through. I don't know. It sounds cringy, but you've got to really get into it and realize it before you can get through it. If that makes sense. So what you're going through
completely.
now, you've got to proper look into it, aren't you? Even though it's so annoying.
I think slowly but surely I am getting there, but there are going to be times where your brain just goes, no, not today.
Yeah.
You're not the 4-wheel Wonder Woman today. You're going to just sit and get very angry about things.
Yeah.
And I think for the non-disabled people out there who are, wondering what they can do to combat ableism, one of the things that they can do is is when Lucy or I or Jem or any other disabled person have those days of I can't do it today, I hate myself today, I'm not good enough today, is that's not when we need you to tell us that we're an inspiration.
Yeah.
No.
Because
it makes us feel worse, doesn't it? On the days where we feel like a bag of dog poo, we don't need somebody saying, "Oh, yeah, you're so inspiring." No, well, no, I'm not. Do you know what I mean? That's not helpful.
If it's taken us all of our energy and effort to get ourselves out of bed and brush our teeth, don't then come along and tell us that we're inspirational for doing so, because we don't feel that on those days. And what we really need from you is support. And that's not support, that's putting us up on a pedestal. That's telling us that we have to either achieve really great things to be worth note, or basically just, get out of bed and deserve applause. What we want is to be seen for who we are, flaws and all.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that disabled people and non-disabled people support each other, by sharing those ups and downs.
I think it goes back to what I always say, Alice. People just need to be a bit kinder, don't they, really? Bit kinder.
To themselves and to other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. I do think, being able to share how we genuinely are feeling in a safe space is the best thing. And then, just being told that our internalized ableism is a load of bullshit when we need it. We can't help these thoughts, but we got to voice them. And then our mates to tell us that it's a load of rubbish.
And, I'm pretty sure from the people that I know and the non-disabled friends and family that I have, that self-doubt and that self-hate, everybody feels that. So this isn't just a problem for the disabled community. We all live in a society where we're told that if we are not a very, very specific type of person, that we're not good enough.
Yeah.
And actually, most of us will never meet that or be that, because it's simply not who we are. It's not how we were born. That's not how we.
And also,
were made.
Society's vision of perfection doesn't exist. That's the thing.
No.
It's a bit like
it's
a bit like the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks it's there, but it's not.
Yeah.
No, exactly. It's I think really important for everybody across the board to just be able to go, well, I mean, some people can't do some stuff. Some people can do other stuff. And that doesn't make you a bad person.
No.
And you don't judge others. I don't know. I just don't look at other people and think, oh, wouldn't it be better if they could do that? Like, no one ever does that. We always just say it about ourselves. You know, we put ourselves on such a high standard. When I meet people, I think, wow, I love their dress sense. Or Lucy, I love the colour of your hair. And Alice, I just love the way, like, I love your top. You know, like, you just pick things that you like about people. You know, yeah, there are assholes out there, but do you want to be mates with them anyway? No.
Yeah, I spent a lot of my time in my late teens and early 20s comparing myself to other girls around me and going, oh, well, you know, look at her hair and her dress sense and she can see, and look at all of this and she can see. And then, you know, I've since become friends with girls who have said to me, you know, who I've been sitting there going, oh, but look at how she dresses and she's got, you know, she's so beautiful and this and that and the other. And they are like, are you joking? I can't, you know, I don't have the confidence to make phone calls for myself. Or, you know, if somebody's mean to me in the street, I just take it. And I'm amazed that you, as in me, doesn't take it, will turn around and say something, will kick up a fuss. And I think that's also the other thing to think about, is that there are people out there who are looking at you going, oh my God, look what they can do.
Yeah, because you never hear that, do you? Really, you never realize the impact that you have, the positive impact on people. You are far more likely to go, oh, but this is wrong, that's wrong. You are far more inclined to invent the negative connotations that your existence might have than you are realize what actually you're very good at.
I'm constantly going, like, I still kind of can't believe Lucy's talking to me. She worked at the BBC. It's like just because that's a big deal and that's impressive. And Lucy's just like, yeah, I'm in my jammies. I'm texting Alice because I'm having a bad day. And I'm like, what are you complaining? Like, but you work for the BBC. How can you not be like, please, I can do this. This is easy.
Get a great woman.
Yeah.
That's why we've got to be kind to each other, Nick, because we don't see it in ourselves. And it sounds cheesy, but that's why I like the deep chats, you know?
But see, Alice was about to tell me how amazing she thinks I am, and I stopped her because we're in the middle of a podcast recording and she's going to make me cry. So she just don't be nice to me, otherwise I will cry. That is the number one rule, really.
Yeah, I think it's the thing about ableism that so many people don't realise is the impact that it has on people's mental health.
Yeah.
You know?
Constantly.
Completely. I can remember things that happened to me years ago that still play on my mind that I know is a big trigger for when I'm feeling terrible. And it, you know, that one person who said that thing to me probably doesn't even give me a second thought.
Yep.
But to me, it sticks with me and it festers, and it's just,
Yep. And you know, that also is true for the structural ableism, that, you know, there are absolutely things that I am still kicking myself for because I couldn't see something or I fell over something because the place that I was in was poorly lit, or, you know, the signs were too small, or there wasn't a ramp access or something like that.
I can remember going to an award ceremony for something at college, and there was no disabled access, even though they were told that Lucy was coming and she's in a wheelchair. There was no disabled access to this building. We got there and realised there was no disabled access. It was too late by then. We were there. My friend carried me up the stairs, and he's such a great friend of mine now. Honestly, I have to be very careful what I say to Chris, because Chris, if I say something like, oh, I fancy having a go on that, he will make sure I have a go. Whether I've changed my mind or not, you're going on that thing that you wanted to go on 5 minutes ago.
You remember 4 years ago when you mentioned in passing that you wanted to go on one of those like bucking bull ride things, Lou?
That's pretty much what Chris does. And I have to be very careful what I say, because I think that, do I really want to do this, or is this just a fad? But my shoe fell off, and I can still remember the feeling of feeling so embarrassed that my shoe had fallen off, because Chris and several other people had to carry me up the stairs, and my shoe had fallen off. And I can remember them putting my shoe back on and me thinking, oh my God, people are going to be looking at my feet. My feet are horrible. Oh God. It's not Chris's fault. It was the building that I was in. If they'd have just said there's no lift, we would have said, do you know what? I'll be appearing live by video. Didn't even win. I don't know whether I did. I can't remember. Chris will probably listen to this and go, yes, you did. So I'm sorry, Chris, if I've got this story wrong. But yeah, no, it's just stuff like that lives with you, isn't it? The embarrassment. You know, you see those memes, don't you, on the internet of lying awake at night and your brain remembering things going, do you remember that time you embarrassed yourself 25 years ago? But I get that, because do you remember that time when you couldn't get in this building and you really felt quite embarrassed? It's that kind of thing. The ableism keeps you up at night if you're not careful.
But actually, it should be like, do you remember when that building wasn't accessible? You know, we should flip it and say that instead of, you know, do you remember when you got your feet out? Like, you know, no one's thinking about losing feet. They're thinking, how ridiculous was it, you know?
Yeah. How awful is it that Lucy got invited to something in a building where she couldn't get in?
Yeah.
The person who should be lying awake at night is the person who booked the, you know, building for the award ceremony. They should be lying awake at night, humiliated by the fact that they invited a wheelchair user to a building they couldn't get into.
Yeah.
No. And do you think they are? No. Of course they're not. No. But the one thing I will say, we'll round off the episode off with the positive vibe, is the fact that my disability, I always say, makes me a brilliant dinner party guest, because I've got stories that never make me boring. So, you know.
Definitely.
Lucy's obsessed with this dinner party, this imaginary dinner party. She's always talking about it. I'm beginning to suspect that she's just angling for somebody to invite her out to dinner.
You can come to mine. You can come to mine for a dinner party.
Let's do that, Jeb.
I'm accessible as well. I can promise you that.
Level access. Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today, Jem. I really hope you've enjoyed
I've loved
speaking to us this
it.
morning.
Thank you too.
Yeah, I feel like perhaps Lucy and I, me in particular, have stolen the microphone a bit. So if there's anything else you want to say before we go, Gemma, perhaps tell people where they can find you and a bit about your podcast.
Oh, thank you. No, I've loved today. You can find me on @Gem_Turner on socials, gemturner.com, and my podcast is called First Impressions. So yeah, if you type that into either Acast or Spotify, you can find me there. But thank you for today. I've really loved it, and yeah, it's nice to just have a chat about, you know, things that are really personal, but we can all relate to. It is nice.
Definitely.
It's been really nice to have you, Gemma.
Thanks so much for coming on, Gemma.
Thank you. Have a lovely day.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. And again, if you've enjoyed this week's episode, please, please, please tell all your friends how much you like us. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, because that's where it helps us new listeners find us. And that's really important, because we want lots of people to listen to us so that we can keep doing this. So follow us on social media and all of the rest of it. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the lABLEd podcast. If you like the show, please rate, review and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at lABLEd podcast.
Thanks go to our editor, Adam Hall, our music composer, Maisie Crunden, and our graphic designer, Sarah Coley.
We'll see you next time.